At the F1 Austrian Grand Prix, Nyck de Vries sunk to his lowest of lows yet this season. With Logan Sargeant finishing ahead of him, Nyck officially became the lowest placed driver in the 2023 Formula 1 Championship. This is a massive fall from grace for a driver crowned the Formula E champion during the 2020-21 season. But now, with his F1 career in jeopardy and Formula E fans around the world calling him an embarrassment to the sport, we've got to wonder, what went so wrong that a one-time Formula E and Formula 2 champion can now be Formula 1's biggest failure? So join us as we take a quick look at his past, present and future in the world of motorsport. It was back in 2019 when Nyck first shot up to relative fame after he became the Formula 2 champion. Usually this opens up doors for drivers, but Nyck's timing betrayed him. There was only one realistic option for a rookie in F1 the following year, and Nicholas Latifi, the driver who finished second to Nyck but had deeper pockets, got it. Nyck had to go for the next best thing, which was to become Mercedes' reserve driver in F1 while becoming their driver in Formula E. He somewhat flew under the radar during his first season as a Formula E driver, finishing 11th in the championship with a single podium. It was in the following year that he finally made a mark. He became the champion in one of the most dramatic seasons in Formula E. His stock rose, and there was plenty of talk suggesting that he deserved a spot in F1. Despite his final year in Formula E during the 2021-22 season not being that impressive, as he finished a distant 9th in the championship while his teammate became the champion, he still grabbed headlines in F1. He managed to finish in the points in the slowest F1 car on his F1 debut while subbing for Alex Albon at the 2022 Italian GP. This impressed many, and when an opportunity opened up at AlphaTauri, Red Bull's sister team, Nyck was duly signed. It seemed as if Nyck's career was on an upward trend, but all of that has now come crashing down, which brings us back to Nyck officially becoming the slowest active F1 driver. All the praise that was being showered on him last year has now been replaced with criticism to the point where many feel that Nyck won't even last until the end of the year as an F1 driver. The most damning comment was made by Red Bull advisor Helmut Marko when he bluntly said, "We're not satisfied with Nyck de Vries, we'll look into that." Marko also revealed that Red Bull team principal Christian Horner was not in favour of signing Nyck in the first place. He had the following to say when he was asked about any driver signings he and Horner disagreed upon. "Not often, but sometimes we do. The last one, I would say de Vries, because it's AlphaTauri, but we're a big family and we get opinions. Horner was not a fan of de Vries. I would say at the moment it looks like he was right." Now, Horner technically isn't an AlphaTauri official, but as the chief honcho of Red Bull's F1 setup, his opinion certainly carries weight. While the 2023 AlphaTauri is among the slowest cars on F1's grid, Nyck's inability to show anywhere close to the same level of fight as his teammate Yuki Tsunoda has weakened his case a lot. The highest he's ever finished this year is 12th, which was at Monaco, a track that rarely reflects the norm in F1. At every other racetrack, he's finished 14th or lower. That might not seem too bad against 19 other drivers while driving arguably the slowest car, but it's his attitude that seems lacking. Drivers can still impress in slow cars. George Russell, Max Verstappen, Lando Norris all did just that during their rookie years in F1. Nyck has failed to show that killer instinct to rise above what his car can do. In his last 4 races, he's finished 12th, 14th, 18th and 17th. This in itself hasn't doomed his F1 career, but what has is his head-to-head stats against teammate Yuki Tsunoda. In the 9 races so far this year, he's been out-qualified and beaten in the race by Yuki 7 times. The only driver who's fared worse is Logan Sargeant, who's not exactly the gold standard in F1. Nyck has also been making mistakes far too often, something he's admitted to already. "I definitely think that I personally made too many mistakes. I'll admit that very openly." You could argue that drivers often get some leeway during their rookie seasons in F1, and many drivers who did worse still kept their seats for a second year or more. Pastor Maldonado is an excellent example. However, there are a few things that work against Nyck in this argument. The first is that he isn't a paid driver. Most drivers who end up keeping their seats despite poor performances are the ones that have huge financial backing. Then there is Red Bull's history. They haven't shown hesitation in axing drivers, often mid-season. Danny Kvyat, Pierre Gasly, Jean-Eric Vergne and Brendan Hartley can all attest to the fact. Finally, there's all this bad press around him at the moment. To start off, he didn't have any meaningful fan following or media backing. His 9 races so far in 2023 have only made things worse on this front. Red Bull's brand image matters a lot to them, and to have one of their drivers constantly being mentioned negatively is not something they'll tolerate forever. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that Nyck is under immense pressure. The only way he can save his F1 career now is to deal with this pressure and rise above it. Sadly, we're not just seeing it. During the race in Austria, he went for moves that didn't exist and tried to force overtakes that weren't there. Kevin Magnussen summed up Nyck's state of mind perfectly by saying, "He got a penalty, right? So he did push me off, but he's, I guess, racing for his future. Maybe in a bit of a desperate situation, so nothing I can really say." All these facts point to one thing. It's not a question of if Nyck de Vries' F1 career will come to an end, but when. Unless he can do something miraculous in the coming few weeks, which seems highly unlikely given his recent form and his car's general lack of pace, he's on his way out. Now, does that mean he'll be back in Formula E? Well, there are a few problems with that. Mercedes is no longer in Formula E, and if they were, Nyck already left the Mercedes group to join AlphaTauri. Next year, he'll be 29, which isn't too old, but if a top team had to choose between a young upstart or a washed-up F1 driver low on confidence, we feel the choice seems fairly obvious. That leaves one of the backmarker teams, which won't make any sense for someone who's already won the championship and is looking to repair his image. That leaves options like World Endurance Championship and IndyCar Racing. Both have former F1 and Formula E drivers competing in them, and Nyck won't have trouble finding a seat in a decent team there. However, we do sympathise with Nyck's predicament and hope that with a little bit of luck, he can turn things around and instead of ending up as yet another driver who couldn't make the cutthroat world of motorsport, he becomes known for facing insurmountable odds and still prove everyone wrong.